Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Talking Throttle with me, Alex. In all of the episodes that I have done so far, episode 9, this one is the most excited I've been to doing the podcast because that race, the Dutch Grand Prix, was, oh god, it was just what you want from a race. 3 DNFs, 3 penalties, and the championship, it's almost looking like it's been decided now. We may have our winner, but is it too soon to say? Who knows? Stay with me as there's a lot for us to talk about and I can't wait to talk about it. Let's get into it. Well, where do we actually start? I thought it would be a good idea for me to introduce what I am going to be calling my race recap. Just so I can explain what's happened in the actual race, recap everything, and then we need to talk. This is the race recap in Alex's words. Bear with me now, but here we go. We went straight into the weekend with 3 practice sessions. Now, Lando Norris was absolutely smashing every single one, quite literally like Mario coins. Pow, pow, pow. Oscar Piastri wasn't actually as fast. So going into qualifying, I think a lot of people was expecting Lando Norris to get pole, Oscar Piastri to get second. Well, what had happened was we go then into qualifying and Lando continues to smash it. He puts in a lap in Q3. But hold on a minute, it looks to me like Oscar Piastri is putting in a similar set of numbers, if not slightly quicker on different sectors. Oscar gets pole, but he gets pole but it's a 12th of a second, 0.012 of a second. That is how close the margins were. When Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, Isaac Hadjar came out of absolute nowhere in the baby Red Bulls. And then I think it's George Russell in 5th and then the Ferrari boys in 6th and 7th. We then go into the race, it's lights out and away we go, and Oscar Piastri hawk off as he should do, but not just him, so did Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen was able to overtake Norris in the first lap. However, Norris has the quicker car, so Norris was able to take that position back in a relatively short amount of space of time. Well, laps later, in lap 23, Lewis Hamilton, for some reason, decides to drive into the barrier, which we will talk about in a moment, which brings out our first yellow flag, which basically triggered everybody to run into the pits and change their tyres, and so they did. As the McLarens went into the pits, there was an issue with Lando Norris as they lifted up the car, they didn't pull the jack out properly enough, which probably cost them about a second, which doesn't really matter, but I thought, Oh, they came back out. There was a little bit of a collision with Carlos Sainz and Liam Lawson, which resulted in Carlos Sainz receiving a 10-second penalty at the end of the race. A bit of a bummer for him, considering his teammate Alex Albon finished the race perfectly. But guess what happens? We get a second yellow flag. Kimi Antonelli decides to knock the daylights out of Charles Leclerc, the second Ferrari driver, which means the Ferrari drivers are out. For me as a Ferrari fan, I'm surprised I'm still breathing, okay? Team McLaren boys, they were still 1 and 2. Piastri is still first, Lando Norris is in second. Those two are on hard tyres. Everybody else behind them, Max, George, I want to say Isaac, and potentially maybe even Aston Martin instead, I can't remember. But at this point, I think everybody went on to softs, which was really interesting to watch. The 2 fastest cars on the slower tyre, but with the fastest cars ahead, and the rest of the field who are gaining in very slowly but on much quicker tyres. But nothing really came from that, but I did think it was an interesting strategy. We continue on, we think, yeah, Charles is now out, we get back to racing again. I think it was lap 58. So on lap 58, we had a green flag again, which meant we were back to racing. That means that the 2 McLaren boys up front, I think at this point Norris was in second and Piastri was still up front in first. However, there was literally a second between the 2 of them. Across 12 laps, this was going to be an interesting fight. And then sadly, on lap 68, we got a message come through on somebody's radio, or the smoke coming out the front of the car. Something smells funny. Huh? Lando Norris, who comes into this weekend 9 points off the championship leader, his teammate, ended up having a power unit failure, brackets, his engine fucked up, and that cost him the race, which then resulted in Lando Norris not finishing the race and not getting any points at all. So that 9-point gap between him and his teammate. went from 9 to about 34, I think, and they had to double check. Lewis Hamilton lost the 2016 championship to his teammate Nico Rosberg. That is what I thought when I seen Lando crash out. So the race ended with Oscar Piastri taking first position, Max Verstappen in second, and Isaac Hadjar somehow, by some God-blown miracle, manages to get himself into third and managed to secure his first podium. Not to mention other really good drives from other drivers such as Ollie Behrman, Alex Albon, Max Verstappen, of course, and Isaac Hadjar. The biggest takeaway from the Dutch Grand Prix is the effects that it's now had on the championship. Let's just be honest, let's just say it as it is, it's effed it up. It's effed it up because we've got 9 races to go left in the calendar, right? And I've kind of done some maths and thinking, okay, if this happened, then what would kind of Lando need to then get back in the running, to see how much Lando Norris would need in the remaining 9 races to get back in the running of the championship contention, right? So coming out of this weekend, Oscar Piastri has 309 points. Lando Norris stays on 275. First place, you get 25 points. Second place, you get 18 points. If Lando wins 5 out of the next 9 races, he's still in contention of the championship. Coming out of the summer break, Lando had won 3 out of the last 4. So statistically, he's doing all right. However, he needs to guarantee that he wins 5 out of the next 9 in order to stay in the championship run. And that is with Oscar Piastri taking second on every single occasion. That, in my opinion, it's not impossible. It is possible, but it's going to be a struggle. My thinking and my thought process around that is that over the next 9 races, we have circuits such as Brazil and circuits such as Singapore, which have historically been known to be hard tracks to drive on, but also complicated tracks, which takes the best of your driving ability. So it doesn't really come down to your car, especially in Brazil. If it's Brazil and if it's raining, I can't wait to see it. If we get the Brazilian Grand Prix in a few weeks' time / months' time, and we get it raining and the contention and the championship is still tight, this Dutch Grand Prix was exciting, but I can already tell you from now that Brazilian Grand Prix is already going to be probably more exciting than this, I think anyway. So with that being said, I think we have got some very challenging races coming up. So it's really difficult to kind of say where we think this is going to go. And I think anybody that says, oh, I think Oscar's going to do it at this point or Lando's going to do it at this point, it's impossible. I think you're just doing that based on what you think. It's going to be really hard for Lando, and it's looking incredibly likely that it will fall in Oscar Piastri's favour. However, as I said, we don't know. We're just going to keep an eye out and see how this goes. But we'll see. It's gone dark outside. Well, it's raining, but it feels like every time I do this podcast, I'm having the exact same conversation, or I'm saying the exact same thing every single week when it comes to Ferrari. I am losing my goddamn mind. However, what I will say this week is something that I haven't said previously, and I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say it because I think it's true. This weekend, the issue with Ferrari, so both of their drivers had DNF. Now, little Charlie, not his fault. Okay, Kimi Antonelli knocked him out. I'm not angry at Kimi. I don't think anybody's upset at Kimi for doing it because Kimi's so young. You've got to give him a chance. It is what it is. It's annoying, but it is what it is, right? So Charles is out for something that he couldn't control. Lewis, on the other hand, now I mentioned practice sessions earlier, but the only thing I talked about with practices was how well that Lando did. We didn't talk about how many drivers spun out during all 3 practice sessions. I think Lance Stroll crashed out, spun out twice. Alex Albon spun out. Max Verstappen spun out. Lewis Hamilton spun out twice. And I believe there was somebody else. I want to say Kimi Antonelli, but I don't think I'm right. But I'm sure there was a Mercedes in there anyway. But the point is, you've got the likes of Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen spinning out on this track, which automatically told us this is going to be a good race. Coming then into qualifying, I'm a bit disappointed that he got out qualified by Leclerc, considering he was faster during the practice when he didn't spin out. But okay, fine. And one thing I will say about Ferrari, which I've said it 2 podcasts ago about what their issue was, and I said their issue was strategy. This weekend in particular, I think their strategy was actually spot on. knock them for their strategy. The strategy never failed in this one. Oh, also, sorry, before I even go into that, not to mention that, so he's ended up having a DNF, and then he's managed to get a 5-place grid penalty for the Italian Grand Prix next week. During qualifying, there was a double yellow flag and he didn't slow down. So then the FIA have decided that next race in Italy, Monza, you've got a 5-place grid penalty. In Monza, as a Ferrari driver, 5-place grid for something that, as a very experienced driver, you know better than that. Like, I can't find a way. I can't think of any excuse as to why you wouldn't slow down on a double yellow flag. Why? And I don't know if that's because he didn't see it, lack of attention, mind was elsewhere. I don't know. But at this point, the Lewis Hamilton that I'm watching on my screen or during the race is not the Lewis Hamilton I know. You deserve a 5-place grid penalty for that, because what the fuck are you playing at? Like, you know better than that. You know you should have slowed down. You can't excuse that. Anyway, the going into the barrier thing, what I think is that Lewis is really struggling with his car. Really struggling with his car. Like this, the car don't get on with him, he don't get on with the car. It's very obvious. We've seen Lewis do this before. We've seen it when it happened when he started with McLaren, and we've seen it when he joined Mercedes at the same time. We're seeing it again now as he's at Ferrari. However, the only difference is with him at Ferrari in comparison to when he started with Mercedes and McLaren, he was much younger then. And now you've got the added pressure of the fact that you're now 40, which means your reaction times or your ability is going to be a little bit slower than it was when you were, say, 18 years old. What I can see here is that the car is not working for Lewis. And if we didn't have the regulation changes next season, I'll probably be concerned. However, with the regulation changes coming next year, that's going to require Ferrari to recreate the car anyway. This could be a really good opportunity for Lewis to then develop a car that works for him. And I think I am seeing reports left, right and centre of people within Ferrari confirming that next season's car is going to be designed around Lewis as opposed to the car that they've got now. So what I think about Lewis is this, like, every single weekend I'm watching this expecting for an amazing result from him, and I've just got to accept the fact that that's not going to happen this season. Not in that car, not with the way that he is mentally. We've just got to accept it for what it is. The rest of the season, for the rest of these 9 races, fuck it. Smash everything, break everything, understand what works for you in that car and understand what doesn't work for you in that car. Once you have an understanding as to what works and what doesn't work, forget about it. Don't even think about it. There's no point. Get rid of it. The good stuff that does work, how can we bring that to the new car and how can we help that to get us faster and faster? That is the way you should be thinking about it. But the damaging thing is that because he is Lewis Hamilton and because he is a 7-time world champion, the more that he messes up, the more backlash and weight that he gets. I have never seen a driver get more hate than I do with Lewis Hamilton in the comment sections. There are a lot of people calling him to retire. There are a lot of people reporting that he may retire. There are people saying that he's washed up. There are people saying that he's done, which I do not believe to be the case. I think going into a team like Ferrari, which is very different, it's culturally different, the way they operate is different, it's going to be a challenge. He's not going to go into it and absolutely smash it. Seb didn't. Story time here about Ferrari, and this is my own experience, and this is what happened, and this is what I saw with my own 2 eyes. It's British Grand Prix. I was volunteering and I was in the pits. Now, where I'm standing in the pit, I've got Mercedes garage here and I've got the Ferrari garage here. I'm thinking, yeah, I'm in a good place. Not only that, but I was next to like a gated entrance, which there was people going on and off the track to like cycle their bikes on it and stuff. So people that work for the teams. Fine. So, as I'm standing there, I turn to my right and I noticed 2 men dressed in Ferrari overalls. So they must have been part of the Ferrari team. I don't know who they were, whatever. But Ferrari overalls, full-blown kit. They were like pit crew or something. So as they came back in, I was like, crap. But they was waiting for somebody to move the barrier that was in front of them. So they were literally just standing there. And I was like, I'm going to say something. So I turned to them and I said, best of luck for the weekend. Or they looked at me and they did not understand the words that had come out of my mouth, and that is best of luck for the weekend. Maybe it could have been my accent, maybe it could have been the volume, maybe it could have been that, I don't know, but I said that And both of them looked really confused. And then I think one of them went behind the barrier, and then the other one was still looking at me. And I said, "Fingers crossed, podium, like fingers crossed, podium this weekend." And he did that, and then he smiled and he did that. So he understood that, but he didn't understand the first thing that I said, which confirms to me that Ferrari is a very traditional team in the sense where everybody that works for Ferrari is Italian, which means they speak fluent Italian, which means Lewis could potentially be going into a team here where there's people where there may even be something as simple as a language barrier there because everybody speaks Italian. So with that being said, I think there is a lot to consider, considering it's a cultural change, it's a change altogether. It's going to take time. And I think the focus now at this point, I don't care about, not say Lewis, but I don't care about Lewis and Ferrari for the rest of the season. I'm not expecting anything crazy. I'm accepting it for what it is. Let's mess shit up. Let's learn from this car and let's move on to the next. My only concern, major concern, is that the pressure that Lewis is getting, as I said, the comments that are being made, I hope they're not getting into his head for him to then doubt himself, as we've seen him do previously when he said he was worthless or hopeless or whatever the word was. But let's just hope it doesn't affect his mental ability, because if he starts to get into his head, that's when you can start to see a proper downfall, and it doesn't matter what car he has, it's just going to go downhill from there. But he will see. He will see. Anyway, in other news, Kimi Antonelli, because he knocked out Charles Leclerc, he got a 10-second penalty. Then he also got a 5-second penalty for something that also happened in the pits, and I want to say it was speeding. His contract is up, I believe, at the end of this season, along with George Russell. I just want to say, as like a point for the sake of the COD podcast, I don't think they're going to get rid of Kimi Antonelli. Toto said very publicly that he's very happy with both of his boys. However, during the summer break, my man's best is with Max Verstappen and his family and the yacht. And I'm like, George hates him, so why are you chilling with him? I don't understand. Like, you can't be gang. How are you gang and like you're chilling with somebody that I don't like? I don't make it make sense, but I think they are going to keep him, but something deep down inside of me says that there may still be a chance that Max could go over to Mercedes, because why else would Max Verstappen be so close with Toto Wolff so suddenly? Nah, man. Confirm the contracts then, innit? Like, if you're going to keep them, confirm the contracts, confirm the extensions, because as it stands, we're just having this. I ain't got nothing else besides that. So, although people are saying, oh yeah, Max is very happy at Red Bull, he's going to stay, I wouldn't be surprised in like the next couple of years, the next 2 years, or even the next month or so, we got a news article that said, oh, he is actually going to Mercedes. But more positive things then. So let's talk about Isaac Hadjar, because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. For him to do what he did, and I know over the past couple of weeks, I've been saying, keep an eye on such and such, or such and such did good. How did they manage to get that tractor from A to B? The impressive thing with what Isaac Hadjar did is that not only did he manage to secure a third place and a podium, but he didn't get fourth, or he didn't start fourth because of anything to do with anybody else. He qualified in fourth because of his ability and his driving. So they should be a lot slower. And you've outpaced the two Ferraris, the Mercedes, and the Aston Martins in a baby Red Bull. That is impressive, considering that car is nowhere near as quick as the other cars. Even when the race started, the commentators were like, Isaac's probably not going to keep that position for too long because the cars behind him are a little bit quicker. They ate their words by the end of the race. And I think even as we got towards the end of the race, was talking about the Lando Norris having a DNF with like 10 laps to go. Digested that. They were like, oh, Isaac Hadjar! Expected from nobody. And I know recently we've had Nico Hulkenberg. He was started from 20th, managed to get third. Whatever, fine. I think that was strategy, cool. But on this occasion, Isaac's success was not as a result of strategy. Yes, okay, he may never have got that pole position if Lando didn't crash out. For you to start that race in fourth and manage to not have the Ferraris overtake you, and to keep that position and nobody overtake you, that is extremely, extremely impressive to do. Sorry to say this, but the only rookie who I don't think is doing enough. I would say is Colapinto, but then I don't know if that's because of Alpine or if that's just because of him. I think he is potentially in the worst team there. I think Haas, Kick-Saber, and Williams have all done amazing jobs of coming from the bottom of the grid to kind of moving themselves up and actually competing in the midfield. Whereas Alpine, it almost feels like they're slowly falling behind, despite I know Ryan Reynolds has brought them out recently and they are getting some more money in, but in terms of performance, like it's not looking good. Talk about Lance Stroll actually, because I spoke about this 2 episodes. We spoke about the Aston Martin decision, and we spoke about whether Lawrence Stroll should decide to get rid of his son Lance Stroll. Now, Lance, this is the weekend that Lance had. He crashed the car, mashed the car up, mashed it up to the point where the engineers or whoever, the mechanics, had to repair the car overnight for practice session 2. He comes out in practice session 2, mashes the car up again, so it's not undrivable. Something happened to him in qualifying, which then resulted in him getting out of the car early. So I'm sure he qualified like Stark last. And then, by some type of godforsaken miracle, manages to get the car from there to then finish in 7th place, but then also out qualify his own teammate. So I'm like, you've had an absolute wank weekend, but you've somehow managed to pull it off. You've got a good result and you managed to get points. I don't know how he's been able to do that. I don't know. Bear in mind, if the 3 DNFs didn't happen, he probably wouldn't have got that position. That 7th would have been about 13th, so he would have been out of the points, which means I guess it is circumstantial. But still, just makes me think, how in the world have you managed to do that? Let's talk about the most exciting thing, because next week, guess what, guys? We haven't got another break. We haven't got another weekend of nothing. No, we've got my favourite race. My favourite race on the calendar. Ew! Next week, we have Monza. So Monza itself has 53 laps. It's really, really fast, but then you have got those sudden stops as well, as you've got tight chicanes as you need to it's almost very speed trappy, but very, very exciting race. But then also, Monza is the home to Ferrari. So what you will see is loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of Ferrari merch. It's literally just going to be a sea of red. The Dutch Grand Prix is a sea of orange, because Italians, it's going to be red. They're passionate. In Italy, there is 2 very important things: the Catholic Church and Viva Ferrari. They don't play about Ferrari, so I can't wait to see it, especially as a Ferrari fan myself. And this is also going to be Lewis Hamilton's first Italian Grand Prix as a Ferrari driver, so that's also going to be extremely iconic to see. You guys let me know what you think, but thank you so much for listening to the podcast once again. I will be back next week with the Italian Grand Prix, which will be episode number 10. If you haven't already, make sure you like, comment and subscribe. If you don't already, make sure you follow my TikTok. But thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you all again next week. Bye!